This is what you call a bad am too. Hello, everyone. Sorry, we are actually having lots of technical difficulties right now. Like it's been a hot. Forget. Like it's. I'm a mess. Hello, everyone. Welcome to waking up. I literally like jet lag is motherfucking real. I know. First off, not a motherfucking vacation. Let me make that real motherfucking clear. Motherfucking clear. I worked my ass off. So, no, yes. With there were places I could be at a job, yes. Could I have been stuck in my office? Absolutely. 8 days in Hawaii, not going to complain. But I'm telling you, I earned every motherfucking piece of pineapple I had on that island. Like, that's for sure. We need to unmute Sean. No, we don't need to unmute Sean. There's no reason to unmute him. No reason. None. Just kidding. Here you go, Sean. I'll unmute you. Okay. No, and Sean, it's saying you're not muted. Can you hear him? Because none of him is muted. Even my Streamlabs, because it's saying you're not muted. It doesn't like you. It doesn't like you.
It doesn't. Am I coming through in Streamlabs?
This muted Sean. Yes, you're coming through on Streamlabs. That's where I'm looking. No, here's Sean. I know. Oh, okay. Oh my God. That has been our day. Oh. There he goes.
Oh, there I am. You fix it?
All right. Sure. Shit. Oh,
come on.
Shit. Okay. Hello, everyone.
I had the best dad jokes.
He did. Okay. All right. Let's try this, y'all. I am suffering some massive jet lag. In case you weren't aware, I would have been in Hawaii for the past 8 days. Can you read again? I've been in Hawaii for the past 8 days. I lost an entire day because I left at 9:30 on Friday night, but got back here at Houston and like at 2 p.m. But you know, it's with a 5-hour time difference and daylight savings. It's been a mess. It's a mess. I'm a mess.
The time of wow. Traveling east to west or west to east is miserable, isn't it?
No, west to east, yes. East to west, not fine because like, you gain time. Yeah, you gain time. I was like, yeah, shit. I was up at like
exactly.
I tried really hard to stay on Central Time. I really did. I woke up at like because I actually had like groups out in New York, so they're 6 hours ahead of Hawaii. So I was like up at like 5 a.m. So it's been, anyway, y'all don't need to hear all that. That's neither here nor there. That's not why you showed up. You showed up for our trauma, but that's part of my trauma. I'm suffering from like.
I think they show up for us regardless of what comes out of our mouths.
Fair. But all right, here we are. Hello.
Had a tropical work trip, and now
I did have a tropical work trip that kicked my butt.
See, I corrected it this time. They didn't hear the incorrect one that I said earlier.
Yeah, that's right. Because he said, you were on a tropical vacation. Yeah. I was like, fuck you. I earned that. Anyway, hello. Welcome to Waking Up. Welcome to Waking Up. I am Arugs. I am one of the co-hosts, and with me is I sometimes tolerate him, sometimes my best friend. Depends on how I feel that day. We have such a healthy relationship.
Hit or miss.
It is. This is Sean, aka Pep here, and here we are talking about our
good morning
religious trauma as well as our mental health and where we what we are doing to deconstruct ourselves and reconstruct ourselves as human beings, as like functioning human beings, or at least trying or attempting. Functional, yeah. Functional.
Not so much normal, just functional.
Just functional, because actually, like some of it's not functional. It's actually pretty bad. So here we go. Here is our disclaimer, because God knows you missed it and you wanted it, and here we are. Yes. All right, here on Waking Up, we are not here to bash anyone's religious beliefs or faith. We think faith and religion are beautiful things when done in a mentally and emotionally healthy manner. We are not licensed professionals. Anything said on this podcast are strictly our opinions. They are our own personal experiences. They are not words. They are not words from a professional. We are not therapists. We are not counselors. We are not life coaches. We are none of those things. What we are two trauma Triscuits, just trying to navigate our lives and improve upon ourselves. And we just hope that and build a community where we can all, work on ourselves together. But if you do need professional help, we do have resources. We do have, places you can get in contact with to help you get the professional help that you do need. You can private message me at NerdMomAce anywhere on all the social medias, and we can certainly get you in touch with somebody who can help you. And it is very important that if you need help, please get help. Yes. So Sean and I both grew up in North Carolina, which is the belt buckle of the Bible Belt, Billy Graham territory. We both grew up Southern Baptist, yes. Which, if you don't know what Southern Baptist is, it is the very strict evangelical denomination of the Christian faith. And it varies from church to church, depending on how strict you were. But Sean and I grew up in a pretty backcountry, very strict church.
Some people call it high control.
High control.
If you're in a high control religion or a high control denomination.
Oh,
yeah,
look at you getting all fancy.
Not in that
fancy
way.
As shit.
No.
I'm like, whatever. I'm still waking up.
That's what TikTok's for.
Yeah, fair. So, what are we talking about today, Pep?
Oh, we are talking about what life is like when you've been in that high control, when you've been in that steeped in that religion for so long,
steeped in the blood of Christ,
and then you deconstruct, steeped in the oh my god, yeah, let's go with that. When you are covered in the blood, and then you finally take a shower.
When you're covered in the blood, that's just a man. That's a man who knows how to do it right. He's not squeamish. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's something else.
The Venn diagram of religious trauma and kink, it looks more like a pancake than a Venn diagram, right?
I mean, fair. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
So, yeah, I'm not wrong. Exactly. So, what happens in life when you separate? When you leave that behind, you deconstruct. What happens with your family and your friends and life, and what happens in your mental health, and what is life like after you leave? So you're gone, you've deconstructed, or you are deconstructing. Then what? Because when I say deconstructing, it's not like you suddenly go, okay, I've deconstructed. It can take a long period of time where you're trying to figure out what exactly do you believe anymore.
Right.
And that, because it can take a while, and that can take a toll on some relationships, because the people that you're deconstructing from your faith, but the people that are still in that faith, the people that are still believe strongly and have it deconstructed, they don't necessarily take too kindly to what you're doing. Some do. Some are fine with it. Some are like, you got to do you. But a lot of them, especially the way we grew up, you might as well have been telling them that everything that they believe is wrong. Like, because you're questioning things, some people take that very personally and feel like you're attacking them because you are choosing to ask questions. So what is life like when you begin that process or have finished that process?
Your video's out of sync. I was just noticing that. And also on top of that, like, we're also going to talk about how the church never taught us as well, like, deconstructing and that's going to be one part of it. And then the second part is how the church never taught us how to end things. Nothing was ever an ending. Everything was
Yes.
forever. Everything. And so that is honestly, that's something Sean and I both struggle with, is that how to end a job, how to end a relationship, a friendship, anything, how to go, this is not
Yes.
healthy for me. We're done. It's, this is over, and how to deal with that, because everything in the church, the way it was approached, everything was forever. Your marriages were forever. Your
Yes.
friendships were forever.
Yes.
Your relationship with God,
Your job is
forever.
forever.
Yeah, you are to be a child.
Yeah.
You are always, it was forever. And that mentality, especially when you're taught that really, really young and for a long, long, long time, it's a struggle. It's still a struggle for Sean and I. When we both know, like, because I know this, like, we both know, no, this is right. We need to. This is over. And I'm not saying between us, but like, whatever it is. Like I know we were talking about jobs, because you guys know.
Stuck with us.
I know, right? Know how like we've changed jobs, and it's one of those. This job isn't right for me. Or maybe I need to do something different. Or maybe this new, even if there was something that was presented to us, hey, I have this opportunity. It is still very difficult for us in our head to go, you know what? I'm going to pursue this new opportunity, because we struggle with that feeling that we need to stick with our current job. Because of we've learned how to gaslight ourselves into thinking, oh, well, we have to stay in it for all of these reasons when we shouldn't. And that's hard. So
I feel the same apprehension regardless of what is ending, whether it, a friendship or a job. Like I still feel the same apprehension. I still put those on the same level. And that, I don't think it's supposed to be like that.
You're still out of sync.
Do I need to reload? Is my audio?
Yeah, because your video is coming forward before your audio. Okay. All right. Well, I'll get started without you. So that's pretty much our show. Is are you gonna talk now? Are you back?
Can you hear me now? Is it better?
You're synced now. Yay. Your computer is sucking today. It is sucking balls today. All right. So yeah, like,
and not in a good way.
No, not in that fun way. But when I remember not wanting to be a part of the church back when I was a young teen. I remember when it was like I started having that cognitive dissonance of the things that they are saying versus my critical thinking and and it's like those aren't lining up, and my personal beliefs aren't lining up with the church's beliefs. But when you're in it since you're a kid, you don't know any different. Like, you're basically saying in your head, you're going, I don't believe that, but the alternative is eternal damnation. So I'll just stay here and be completely uncomfortable and not agree with any of that. And that damage, that mental and emotional damage that does to you as a kid and as a teen, versus I would rather have that than go to hell. Because what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong?
Yes, Pascal's wager.
Right. Yeah. What if? Oh, thanks, Nerdy Will.
Hey, Nerdy Will.
As I say the words eternal damnation come through. Yes. Nerdy Will, I was actually because you're in California. I was actually in California. I was in LA for 3 hours yesterday.
You didn't go visit?
I was in the airport. Yes, but it's technically for me, Nerdy Will is still morning because I am still in Honolulu time. So, yes, the flight back. Yes, so it was fun. But we are taught that eternal damnation is the alternative, and so now, Sean, your experience is I got out still in my formative years, if you want to think about that. I still got out in my late teens, early 20s. So I was still in the formative years where I was able to still have the trauma, but still able to somewhat develop a little bit more of a less
Normal.
religious slant.
Yeah.
You
I did not.
obviously did not get out until your 40s. Like you didn't get out
Yes.
till so once you decided, like what was your decision to leave? Like, your final going, you know what? Because you were going to church after our reboot. You were going
Mhm.
very faithfully and you were a faithful Christian.
Yeah.
And so what really caused you to go, no, you know what? This isn't, this isn't it.
Um, a lot of it came down to me paying it, me looking at what. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Um, Looking at why I was going, because there was a long period of time where I didn't go when I moved to the Charlotte area, um, and was still married. There was a I didn't go to church for a while, so I think that had an impact, where I still believed in stuff. I just didn't really go to church. But then I started going back again. Um, but I was questioning why was I going back? Like I felt guilty about not going for so long. So I started going back and I'm like, okay, this is great. But then I was like, why am I going back? Why do I still believe this? It was actually stepping back and going, what is it that I really do believe? Because for the longest time, even when I was going, what I was being taught in the church was contradicted to what I really believed. Some of the main major topics, things like homosexuality and abortion and all this. It was like there had been a discrepancy between those for a while, and I just kind of tried to that cognitive dissonance. I tried to like maintain that for so long, which I think it really took its toll. The ability to hold that cognitive dissonance and be okay with it, I think has really affected a lot of areas of my life.
Oh,
The ability
absolutely.
to rationalize,
Yeah.
right? So even though I wasn't going to church, I still believed. I still listen to Christian music all the time. I still listen to messages, messages on streamed and all that stuff. So I just wasn't in a church. But I just started questioning why am I going? Do I really believe this? Why? What does it mean? What does it mean if I do? What does it mean if I don't? And for so long, I kind of had shut myself off from that idea, because questioning meant unfaithfulness. You don't question it. You don't question it. And you've talked about that early on. We were both taught you don't question.
Right.
So to finally start questioning, I'm like, what is? And the more I questioned, the more it didn't make sense. The less sense it started to make. Like, what is? Why do? And the one that really got me, when I was deconstructing, was God is good. God is good all the time, and all the time, God is good. Um,
The Bible does say to question, the church says not to.
yes, that's the difference. We grew up in high control. The churches we grew up in were high control. You did not question.
You didn't question
Um,
authority, and that
yeah,
included from
yeah,
from top
hmm
top to bottom. You did not question.
yeah.
Yep.
And the churches the churches that I was in, even when I left, I went to college and left my home church. A lot of the churches I was in was kind of the same way.
Mhm.
You didn't really question. And if you questioned, it was like, well, you just need to you just need to search your faith. You just need to pray about it more. Yeah.
Why? Why? It's too early.
I'm
My
sorry.
meds haven't kicked in. What the fuck? You did those fucking trigger
These
trigger
phrases.
fucking in the warning. That's not
Right.
cool. Not cool.
hmm
Um
Yeah.
I remember very distinctly when we first rebooted because you were going
I
very
was. We had many
faithfully. And you
conversations
would
about it.
send me sermons like your mom sends you. Like you would do what your mom did. Hey, I had this really
Yeah.
great sermon. Let me send it.
Oh my
And
god, I
I like
did, didn't
I
I?
very distinctly remember you sending me these. Oh, I had this sermon about stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to listen. I would tell you. Like, I think that was like
Yeah.
the one area of my life I was very adamant about setting boundaries with. I didn't know how to set boundaries. Like, I didn't, but that
Yeah.
was one area. I think it's because I was so traumatized in the
Mhm,
church
mhm.
that I was like, no, like, I'm so glad that you got something out of it, but don't send me this shit. Like, just don't send it to
Yeah.
me. And I
Yep.
was of course respectful about it. You know,
You are. You are.
I was because
Well,
I
you were respectful because I stopped.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
if I hadn't stopped, you would have been enforcing that boundary. You would have been
Yes, very much so.
look. You need to. Well, yeah. I think you would have been honest. Yeah, you would have been respectful anyway. Even if you would, if I had tried to if violated your boundary and then you had to put a consequence to it, I still think you would have been respectful about
Yeah, I think that's one of
it.
those things because I know that religion and faith,
Yeah.
it's a very personal thing and everybody approaches it
Yeah.
very differently. I think also it is a
Mhm.
personal thing. And I coming from the church, it's not one of those I know I don't believe in it and I've never believed in it. I never was raised in it. I was raised in
Mhm.
it and I understand why Sean was doing that and why like I even understand why Sean's mom does what he does. I get it. Just
Mhm.
because I understand it doesn't mean that I have to allow it. So it was one of those. But he would send me like, "Hey, I had this great." I'm like, "No. No,
Mhm.
okay." And
You're
we almost like it was one of those we had several discussions of I do not believe that way.
Mhm.
I do not. I am a deist. I believe in a
Mhm.
higher power. Do I believe that it is a Christian God? No, I do not.
Mhm.
You know, I hate saying spiritual because I do believe in a higher power, which is, you know, so a higher power is some type of godlike being, which is a
Mhm.
deity.
Yeah.
So it's not just spiritual and energies, even though I do believe
Yeah.
in all that too. But I mean, I believe that there is some type of higher power, but I don't believe in the Judeo-Christian God. And
Mhm.
Sean was all about, hey, my preacher today, like, hey, I got out of church and, you know, it was one of these. And I'm like, good
Yeah.
for it was like
But
one of
you were
those little kid things. Good for you, buddy. That's one of
yeah.
those. Um,
But you were respectful in that, you told me repeatedly, "Look, your faith is yours. That is completely up to you. What you believe, how you believe, that's fine, as long as you respect my boundary." You even asked me at one point so go ahead.
no, go ahead. You finish.
You even asked me at one point, you're like, are you okay with, I don't believe. Is that gonna be a problem? Like for our friendship, is that going to be a problem?
Because I knew the
Um,
mindset he was in. I knew the mindset,
because
like share it with everyone, try and convert
even
them.
because that's the thing about evangelical, for anyone that isn't familiar with evangelical, is it is not about even for evangelical, it is not, even though they say it, it's about relationship. It's not because of the way that evangelicals propagate their faith. Evangelical, a huge part of, of being evangelical is spreading your faith.
Like a disease, like an
You
STD.
it is. It pretty much is. You are attempting to pass on your religion, force it onto everyone else. And you there are Bible verses that that I reference specifically about why. So evangelical is not about, oh well, you can believe whatever you want. That's fine. This is my faith, and that's yours, and that's okay. We're gonna live. We're gonna coexist, and everything's to be happy. No, it's here's my faith. You don't believe it. You're wrong, and here's why you're wrong.
Mhm.
That's the problem with evangelicalism in
Yeah.
many times.
And there was because he was still very much in the church and I was not and it took me a long time. It took me a long time to be even comfortable admitting I wasn't a Christian. And it's that
Ooh,
feeling of
yes.
so once you just like one okay I'm gonna my I once I left the church and once I decided okay church is not for me it's just not it I'm gonna do my own thing um even when you're growing up still in that community because I was in the Carolinas for a very long time it was very hard for me to go I'm not a Christian. I am
Mhm,
not a Christian because you're just like you knew the stigma and the judgment that was going to come with that because
mhm,
you didn't it was is very much like you're just like everyone was a Christian and everybody had a
mhm,
church and a home base and you didn't want to hear like Sean was doing you didn't want to hear the whole well that was just that church that was just that church
mhm.
you just haven't found the right church you haven't found the
Yes.
right one and it's like no that's not it it's not about finding the right church it's not about like,
I heard
I
that many
don't
times.
believe that I just don't. And
Hmm.
it's very isolating at first
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
you are so surrounded in this cult like mentality that
Hmm.
your church or your Christian faith, and it's the only thing that you can believe in, it's the base. So when you get out, you're paralyzed by fear because you were raised as a young child that anybody who didn't believe in the faith was the enemy and they were evil
Hmm.
and they were you were all the bad things were going to happen to you. Like
Oh,
it
yep.
was just it was the monster under the bed, the monster in the closet. You have these imagined demons that are just out there that were out to get you. But you didn't believe in the church either. So you're in this like isolated mindset of where do I go now? Who do I like? What, like, I don't know. I have all my Christian friends, but I don't really want to hang out with them because I want to be human. I want to go out to a bar and drink and go date and have sex that's outside of marriage. And and remember I said I left when I was in my late teens, early 20s. It's like
Yeah.
I want to date and not have to feel like I have to marry this guy. Like I don't want to do that. And let's not even get started. Good morning,
Mm.
unrealistic. Let's not even get
Hey,
started on
unrealistic.
my bisexuality, on me being attracted to girls. Let's not even get started on that. So
What?
I know.
Yeah.
So it was this whole, you leave the church and you're in this, like for me, it was this isolated bubble and this
Yeah.
constant feeling of shame. The
Yeah.
shame and guilt and going and questioning it. Am I doing the right thing? Am I still a good person? And I honestly, if I'm being 100% honest, I thought I was a terrible person for years. For years, I thought I'm
Hmm.
not a Christian. I am awful. I am awful. I am bad. I am unworthy. I am not worthy of
Hmm.
love, which then perpetuated me being in some very unhealthy relationships and making very unhealthy decisions because I'm sitting here and I was ridden with this self-loathing because
Hmm.
I didn't have a purpose. I didn't have a faith. And my
Yeah.
entire life was wrapped around this faith. And here
Hmm.
I am and I'm like, so if I don't believe, then I must be exactly what they taught me, and I must be this awful sinner and I'm not
Yeah.
worthy of love. I am rejecting love. I am rejecting the true love of God. I am rejecting this. So I have to accept whatever is handed to me. And I
Hmm.
should be
You're
grateful for
lucky.
that.
Yeah. You'd be
I'm
grateful.
lucky.
Exactly. You should be grateful for that. That
And
someone
I'm
would.
and it's
Hmm.
awful. It is
Yeah.
awful. Now, Sean, you didn't have I mean, you had that shame experience, but you had a very supportive community coming out of it. Like when you came out of it,
I that's part of I think that's part of what helped is that as I was deconstructing, I had people that I had met that I talked to that weren't in that didn't believe, that weren't Christians. And what can make deconstructing so difficult is when you don't have people around you. Like you said, it's isolating. And I had friends around me that weren't Christians and were good people. That's the thing is you learn when you're deep in the faith and that's all you know is that if they're not Christians, they're bad people. Well, if you don't believe in God, then you're immoral. Like morals are tied directly to being a Christian.
Mhm.
And it's very evident talk when you talk to some people. Um, you if you don't believe in God, you can't possibly have any good morals. You can't be a good person. You can't be and so I had people around me that are good people, and I could look at them and go, they don't believe, but they're still a very good person. So, but there was also people that I had met when I started going back to church, and that's where some of the isolation came from. Is I had made some friends in the new church that I was going to, and then I started to deconstruct, and it's like these people that I could, because I often don't leave my house a lot of times. So I was going and hanging out with them and talking to them. And all of a sudden I was like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Because they didn't make it so comfortable. They were very adamant about their beliefs and that everyone believe it as well. And so It's losing those friendships is very isolating. No matter what age you're at, it's all of a sudden you're like you don't feel like because you have they're friends. They're almost like work friends in a way. They're friends by opportunity, friends by circumstance. Like your work friends. Now, so you can have work friends that are good friends, but a lot of times your work friends are your work friends because you work with them and you're around them a lot.
Mhm.
You leave the job, and then do you actually communicate with them or not? And
Right.
a lot of times you don't. Work friends are work friends. So they're like church friends are church friends. As soon as you walk away from that, you're like, okay, what do we have to talk about? What are we? Because all you really did was talk about church. You
Yep.
realize who they weren't really a friend. They were more like a work friend. They were a church friend.
Yeah.
So then you're like, then you start to question like, well, who really is my friend? Did I really have any friends? Am I a good friend? Am I a bad friend?
Yes. And you start to question. You literally, once you leave, it's, it's like once you just make that choice to split,
Mm-hmm.
it's that then you go through that period of questioning everything.
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Everything. And we're still questioning. I've been out of the church for a very long time and I am still in therapy 20 something years later, still going, oh shit, that's because of my religious trauma. Fuck. That's I don't
Right.
know how many times that comes up like decades later. And I am like, fuck. And you question everything. Is it my personality? Is that truly an interest of mine? Am I truly this person, or is it my trauma? Is it something that I was trained to be?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like again, that period of isolation and that period of feeling lost. And
Mm-hmm.
here's where that's how the church ropes a lot of people back in, and a lot of people it's like it is a toxic relationship. It is a very toxic relationship. This is where they draw you back in. They hoover you in. For those of you who know how narcissistic relationships
Mm-hmm.
work, hoovering back in is exactly once you decide to leave or separate yourself, they then start to love bomb you and do all those things to suck you back into that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But this is how the church hoovers you back in, is that feeling of isolation and that feeling of am I really am I really in the right? I don't
Yeah.
I'm lost. And
Mm-hmm.
that feeling of being lost, they constantly tell you through, even as a kid, the only way to not feel lost is by accepting Jesus into your heart and by following the Christian faith. There's a Bible verse. I was lost, but now I am found. Yep. That's the big one. So that feeling of loss, that feeling of not knowing what your future is, that feeling of not knowing who you are, that feeling of I don't know who my friends are, that feeling of being lost is then is told you can't feel that way, because the only way to not feel lost, the only way to find your way is to be a Christian and to accept Jesus into your heart. And that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's one of those, now that we're in therapy, I'm in therapy, I'm learning that feeling of being lost, there is no good and bad emotions there. And that's where it's like that feeling of not knowing exactly where you're going, exactly what you're doing, exactly how to get there. It's super uncomfortable and it's super unsettling, especially for people like Sean and I, who have to know step by step exactly where we're going, how to fucking get there, and exactly how it's supposed to look like once we fucking get there. And the reality is that feeling of being lost, if we look at that as less about a bad place, this is bad and I need to not feel bad, and this is not, I'm not supposed to be here. And here's my therapy coming out. You ready? Okay, so here we go. Because is that feeling of being lost is actually a feeling of opportunity. It is uncomfortable. It is very uncomfortable. It is very unsettling. However, if you take it and you go, I am lost. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. But it is very uncomfortable. But this is an opportunity to create the life I want. This is I am feeling lost and I don't know what to do and I don't know where I'm going, but I can create the life I want to live. I can create and become the person I want to become. I can go and be whoever I want to be. No one is telling me what to do. No one is dictating to me where I need to go. I can make those choices for myself. And even though it is uncomfortable and I have to sit in that discomfort, that doesn't mean that it is a bad thing. It just means here I am. I am now a blank slate and I can do with this whatever I want. And then and if you are like us, the next thought after that is, what if I fuck up? What if I create this shit?
Yes. Yes. What if I screw this all up?
What if I fuck it all up?
Yes.
And the thought is, yes, what if you do fuck it up? But what if you don't?
Yep.
And if you do fuck it up, what are you going to learn from that?
Yeah.
What are you going to learn? And that's the other thing, is making sure that if you learn that, you're like, oh, what if I fuck it up? What if I do, like, what if I mess all of this up? What if I'm making the wrong choice? Then you make the wrong choice and you'll deal with those consequences and you learn from that. It's when you don't learn from that fuck up, that's when it becomes, and again, you might fuck up and it might be the wrong choice and it might be uncomfortable, but we are learning that discomfort is not a bad thing.
Yes. Ooh, that's a tough one to learn.
No one likes to be uncomfortable. No one does. Let's just be fucking real honest.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And we often do things to try to fix the uncomfortableness.
Yes.
As opposed to accepting that is what it is. It's it's natural. It's normal to feel that way. Deconstructing, leaving the church it's a bad breakup. It's a breakup. It's very similar symptoms because you're so used to that church being a big part of your life, just like a significant other, that who are you without that? And there is that, right? And there is that period of like, this is what I normally would be doing. I would normally, it's Friday night. It's Sunday. I would normally be hanging out with this person, this my ex, but I can't now. I would normally be in church, but I'm not. So what's wrong? It feels wrong but that's not because it is wrong. It's only because it's what you're used to doing. Very similar symptoms. Also, friends. When you break up with someone, your friends tend to pick one or the other. Well, when you break up with the church, guess what? Most of the friends that you had, they make their decision. Some of them are able to go, you know what, this is your belief. You can choose what you want, but in my experience, that is not common. Most people, especially because you realize that all you had in common was church. And so that's where you tend to lose a lot of those friends. It's like a breakup. They chose church. And now you're sitting here going, what's wrong with me?
The common phrase is, I lost them in the divorce. I lost them in the divorce.
I lost them in the deconstruction. I lost them in the deconstruction.
I was going to say I lost them in the D, but that's something different.
That's a very different
thing. Again, that's a different podcast. So.
Yeah. There's a lot of blend here. There's a lot of crossover.
Right. And this is a great transition into it's like, and because of this, like, because we have chosen to leave. But the church never taught us how to, in a healthy manner, how to end relationships, how to end jobs, how to end anything. We were not taught how to end anything because everything was forever.
Yeah.
Everything was forever. You you dedicated your life to Christ, and that was the rest of your life and your eternity.
Once saved, always saved.
Right. Once saved, always saved. Oh, why are you doing this to me today? Fuck you, buddy. All right. So why? But like, we were not taught how to end relationships. We were taught, and especially, okay, well, I'll get back to that. So we were not taught how to end relationships. We were not taught how to end jobs. We were taught that it was eternity. You didn't date to date. You didn't date to get to know somebody. Your mindset was always, Is this somebody I could get married to? Hello and welcome to Borderline Personality Disorder. Everything is forever. Oh, it's so much fun. I'm not saying that my religious trauma caused my BPD, because there was a lot of other things that happening in my childhood that caused that. However, it did not help it. In relationship, I don't know how to start them.
That's struggle too.
Yeah, and let me tell you that's also an unhealthy,
and they are connected.
Yes, they are.
They
connected.
Can be connected. Yeah.
So, and we weren't taught how to sit in the decision of we're ending, this is over, and sit in that discomfort and sit in that and do it in a healthy manner, because in our heads, everything had to be forever. So it kept us grounded in these unhealthy relationships, because we got taught by the church how to gaslight ourselves, how to rationalize unhealthy and toxic behavior, how to accept whatever excuses were given to us, even though when we were trying to get clarification, we were just told we were wrong, we were all these things. And so we taught how to justify that cognitive dissonance, and it kept us in unhealthy professional and personal relationships and environments. And so go ahead.
When your gut is going, something's wrong. When you're in the church and your gut says, something doesn't feel right, what are you taught? Well, you pray about it. The problem is us. When our gut says something's wrong, red flag, there's a red flag here. In the church, you're taught, well, you're wrong, and you just need to pray about it, or you need to have faith, or you need to whatever. So we carry that into our relationships. When our gut's screaming, you need to get out, we're going, well, no, it must be us. We must not be faithful enough, or we're doing something wrong. It's our problem, and we should just ignore that red flag. And it creates very unhealthy relationships. Or it propagates those unhealthy relationships, keeps us in unhealthy relationships for a long period of time.
Yeah. And I mean, Sean and I, we both, I can say this with authority, both you and I have been a product of that, both professionally and personally.
Yes.
The inability, and this
longer than we should have.
Exactly, and this includes friendships. Like, how many people have we kept around because it was like, well, it has to be us.
Or what does it say about us if we end a friendship? We're bad people if we're ending a friendship. Why would we do that? Why would we? Yeah, we put the onus on us. It was always our problem. Something's wrong with us. And so we never learned how to go, what, this relationship, this friendship is not working. This is not a healthy friendship, and it needs to end.
Right.
There was that idea was foreign to us. So when we would think that maybe we need to do that, we had a million reasons why we shouldn't, because it's not, it's because what does it say about us? It makes us bad people.
Right. And taking ownership where we didn't need to take ownership, and it caused us to create reasons, because whenever you wanted to, when I wanted to leave the church, it was like, why do you want to leave? Because because I don't believe this way, because that is not who I am. And that is just that simple. It was that simple, is that this is not who I am. This is not what I believe. And I am doing what's best for me. That reason is not good enough. And that for the church. It is good enough. It is good enough. Period. End of story. It is what's good for me, and it is good for my mental health and my emotional health. That should have been just good enough. But it wasn't. And so you're having to justify, and you're having to put all of these reasons about why I'm leaving and why I don't believe, and then giving them the opportunity to counteract that.
Yep.
They don't
having. Yeah, you're right. Having to justify, and when you're trying to justify it, even when you're in your own head and you're going, okay, why am I doing this, and having to justify it, it's easy to then gaslight yourself and go, well, that's not a real reason, or that's not a real good reason. You start qualifying your own justification and talking yourself out of it. Because like, well, that's not I shouldn't do that. That's not a good reason to feel that way, or that's not a good reason to do that. And you just feel like I feel like a bad person because of it. I feel like there's something else that I should be doing. It's me. I'm the problem.
And that's the thing. It's like it all blends in together in that everything was forever. So your mindset isn't, and no, we're not supposed to be, I'm not encouraging fatalistic thinking of like, okay, this relationship is eventually going to end. No, I'm not saying that either. But we also shouldn't be thinking this relationship's going to be forever. Like we have to think that everything is right now and in the current and in the present, and be present in that. Because like if you start thinking, oh, this is going to be forever, your brain also, now this is just me, again, opinion. This is my personal experience. For me, if I'm thinking this is going to be forever, and then when it comes to the point where I realize that it's not, then all of a sudden my brain goes into, catastrophe mode. And I'm like, fuck, what do I do? Like, what do I do? Now what? Like, geez. Yeah. Like, yeah, it's hard. So
you mentioned being in the present. I never learned to live in the present.
Nope, me neither.
Because I learned to always be looking far ahead. I learned to tolerate this life's existence because I should be focused more on heaven. I should be focused on the afterlife. I should be focused on everything but the present. It was always about how to get to that final destination.
It's interesting you use that word. You learned to tolerate this existence.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and that is a very destructive mindset. It is both self-destructive and is destructive to people around you. I didn't realize this until recently, just how, what that meant. It's destructive to you because you don't live in the present. You're ignoring what's happening in the present and always looking. And that also means I accepted misery. I learned to accept misery right now because in the future, it's going to be better. In the future, there's always that carrot dangled out in front, but it's destructive for others. It's destructive towards others in your relationships and other people, because you see their suffering as temporary. You see their problems, you invalidate their problems because, again, well, yes, I know it sucks right now, but heaven, the afterlife, eventually, you're gonna die.
But I'm gonna counteract that. In that, because that is something that and Paragon, I see that, and I'll get to that in just a second. So I don't want you to think I didn't see your comment. But I'm going to counteract that in that, my therapist, it's still something that's a mindset that you sort of need to still have, is that when you're in that uncomfortable emotion, you have to remind yourself, this is only temporary. You will not be sad, mad, angry forever. It is not an eternal thing. It is not a forever thing. It is only temporary. You have to remind yourself that I am feeling this way in the present, and I may feel this way for a while, but I will not feel this way forever. And that is something that my therapist often has to remind me, especially when I'm in a depressive state, when I am in a state of uncomfortable emotions, is that this isn't forever, that I'm going to survive the storm. And just like you say, the storm eventually does run out of rain. And I've just got to make sure that I've got to sit in this discomfort and understand what the discomfort is. It is only temporary. And that is, it's less about invalidating. Hey, don't worry about it. You'll get to heaven. Like, it's more of the accepting, this is how I'm feeling right now. But I know that if I do the work, I know that eventually I am not going to feel this way. Like, had you asked me in October if I was going to be sad, depressed, and lonely and all of these things, I would have felt like I was never going to feel okay. I was never going to feel
Mhm.
safe. I was never going to feel those things. And I would have told you that. But it's not a long-term game either. I think that that's where in the Christian faith, we're just like, oh, just pray about it. Just, eternal
Mhm.
life. It's not a long-term thing. It is I feel this way right now. And maybe I'll feel this way tomorrow, but maybe I won't. But it's more in the mindset of I've just got to accept where I am right now and understand that I, as long as I'm doing what I need to do, that it won't last forever. And if it is a persistent feeling, then what do I need to do mentally and emotionally
Mhm.
to accept it or work on it? And it's not an external, hey, just pray to God and it'll eventually be over. Just, you'll get to heaven and it'll be better. No, it's the
Yeah.
mindset of I'm feeling uncomfortable now. And if I'm feeling uncomfortable for a prolonged period of time, accepting that and going, what do I need to do
Mhm.
to to embrace that part of myself and then embrace where I'm at and just and accept those things because that's where it is. So I you saying that that's
I was
invalidating, I don't know.
I was thinking more about situations and emotions because yeah, you're right. Their emotions are temporary. These things will change or every so often. I'm thinking more of situations that they're in, difficult situations that they may have. Well, eventually, it's all about suffering, dealing accepting suffering in order to because eventually eternal life, storing up treasures in heaven. This is where God puts you in this situation.
Sitting yourself and not doing something about it when you can.
Yes.
That is what you're
That's
talking
that's
about.
what I'm talking
Okay.
about.
All right.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that then
Sorry, I
that's
didn't I didn't explain that properly, but
no,
that is what I'm
yes,
talking about.
exactly. If you can do
Mhm.
something, and that's the thing is if you're in a situation where you're struggling and you're in a bad
Yeah.
place, that's the one thing that my therapist will say, okay, what are we like, hey, this is where you're at. What changes, what small changes, what can you do to make
Mhm.
steps towards either accepting where you are or what can you change to help you navigate that?
Mhm.
And it's just sitting there in the acceptance of, well, I'm just going to suffer and it'll just stop when it stops. That's where it becomes the unhealthy
Yeah.
mindset. Yes,
Yes. Yep,
exactly.
you don't exactly. Mhm.
So yes, Sean
And
did not
and
explain
instead
that
of
very
and
well.
no, I didn't. Sorry about that. But everything that you said is absolutely valid. Is about the about
I hope so.
emotions
My
and
therapist says it to me all
situations.
the time. I was just parroting what she said to me. She tells me that all the fucking
That's good.
time.
That's good advice. Good
Okay,
advice.
good,
Good word.
good,
Good word.
good.
So all right. So what Paragon said is not a paradox. You're not supposed to think about death because it's seen as depressive, but you're supposed to aim for the afterlife. B- because you're not focused on death in terms of death. Death is seen as the next step towards you know, you store up treasures in heaven. You're going to be with God for eternity, and isn't that so wonderful? And you're going to be praising God for all eternity. And this life is tough. This life is miserable. But you know what? You should really focus on eternal life with God because that's going to be better. No matter what's happening right now, it's just temporary. All the difficulties, you don't need to don't worry too hard about what's happening right now because you're storing up treasures in heaven. I think that's taught to tell people to stay where you're at. I think that's it's the don't try to fix anything. Don't try to become better. Don't try to rise above where you're at because heaven,
Because heaven.
because heaven, yeah.
Um, well, death, it's one of those. This is a weird thing in the Christian faith, depending on what church you
Hmm.
go to and what doctrine they're preaching at you. Because there's this martyr mindset that they actually taught us
Yes.
right after trigger warning,
Yep.
a big old trigger warning. Okay, trigger warning. Pause for
Uh
like
huh.
5 seconds. Trigger
Yep.
warning.
Go ahead and mute or click away.
Click away. Okay. So right after the Columbine incident, and I will try and
Yep.
choose my words carefully. After the Columbine
Hmm.
incident, Sean and I were both in a high school and college age. Like we were both in that age. And that is what perpetuated a whole martyr mindset. This
It was a
whole,
movement.
it was an entire movement of, are you willing to cease to exist for your faith?
Yes.
And actually they like there's this whole documentary, like this whole about how, she said yes, how she was just this one girl
There's
was like,
songs written about
yeah,
it.
just
There's yeah.
this girl, she said they asked if she believed in God and she said yes, which
Hmm.
actually witnesses said that she actually didn't say that.
Hmm.
That was not what was said. They just spun it.
What?
Yes, they
What?
just spun it.
No propaganda.
She was said they had said something similar, but it wasn't
Hmm.
exactly the way they did it. And
Sure.
I am very sad that that person, it does not exist
Yeah, it
anymore.
was
And for whatever reason, that is a very tragic event. And but what I
absolutely.
find deplorable is that they took and everybody does what they need to do to cope with their grief. I'm not saying that, but
Hmm.
to take somebody's death and to
Hmm.
twist it into an entire movement and for your own agenda, that I find not okay. And that's
Hmm.
diminishing, that is diminishing her faith, because
Hmm.
I don't doubt that she was a faithful person. I believe that
Hmm.
she was. I just feel like they made this whole movement where, are you willing to be a martyr for God? And they used her as
Yes.
an example
And if
instead
you're
of,
not,
and if you're not, then you're not a good Christian. And that was hammered
yep.
home. It was a fear factor
Yes.
thing. And
It was
so,
always present.
right. So it was
Hmm.
very focused on
Hmm.
the ceasing to exist moment, that moment. Are you
Hmm.
willing to cease to exist for your faith? It wasn't about afterlife. It wasn't about heaven. It was about, are you willing to be a lamb to the slaughter? Are you willing to be that
Yep.
sacrifice? And that's what, and it's a lot of fear. Is a lot of fear to keep you in control, and
Hmm.
that's a way cults keep you in control,
Yeah.
is fear. And
Yeah.
I know Sean and I
And
both,
the guilt,
yeah,
and the guilt that if you couldn't say yes that I would do that, you were guilted into it. You were like, well, that's your faith isn't strong enough. You really need to pray and you need to seek God and you need to.
which the reality is, if you don't want to say yes, that is your mind and your body going, I want to live. And there is
It's your
nothing wrong.
survival
It is
mechanism.
a literal biochemical response. It is a very
Uh huh.
natural response to go, I'm going to survive at all costs. And there is nothing wrong with that. And they taught you that there was something wrong with that. There was
Wrong.
something
Yes.
wanting to actually survive and to live and to keep going. And there's like they taught you that that was a bad thing. It was
Yeah.
a bad
Yeah. That
thing
your
to
survival
survive.
mechanism was a bad thing. Hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which then
Because you should
that
want
screws
to.
with your brain.
You should
Right.
want. Yeah. Because if you because you should want to die for your faith.
Watch it. Watch your words.
You should want to. Sorry, unalive for your faith.
Cease to exist. That's what we're using. Like,
Cease to exist for your faith.
oh
You should.
my
Yes.
God. Sean,
Sorry.
I do not want to get canceled. Thank you. Remember, we're on my channel. Can we be careful?
We were taught that it was okay, that's the mindset you should have, to unalive, to cease to exist for your faith. And if you
and
didn't,
and so it wasn't
that was
about
your fault.
heaven. It wasn't about, and yes, it was sort of, but then it wasn't. It was very much focused on that.
It was the martyrdom.
Yeah.
And then that kind of watered they started not diluting, that's not the right word. They started trickling that down to where it starts with ceasing to exist and goes down into persecution. Are you willing to be persecuted? Because they know the other situation isn't going to happen all the time, but persecution. So you begin. Are you willing to be persecuted, to accept persecution?
Yes, exactly.
Um,
Exactly, Paragon.
yeah. And so you begin seeing everyone. I began seeing everyone that disagreed with me as persecution.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that very present in today's world. The idea that you disagree with me, therefore you're persecuting me.
And it also belittled and minimized death in that aspect, and
Mm-hmm.
grieving. And it's like, hey, like he said, it's like we're supposed to aim for the afterlife. It's like, well, he's in a better place. They're in a better place.
Mm-hmm.
They're in heaven now. They're happier now.
Yeah.
And it belittles the grief, and it belittles everything. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the problem that I had. Because after I suffered major loss with my grandmother practically raised me. And when she passed, it was one of those, well, she's in a better place now. But that's not like, that's invalidating
Yeah.
the loss that I am feeling right now. And I think that that's
Yeah.
what it bleeds over into now that we are not Christian. When we break up with somebody, or we have a loss for somebody, or we lose someone, it's one of those, uh, if we don't believe in heaven, how do we cope with that? Because we were like, we soothed ourselves with the thought, they're in a better place. They're in a better
Yes.
place. It's fine, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
still feeling this loss, but I can deal with this loss by just thinking they're in a better place.
Mm-hmm.
Or we broke up, but you know what? It's better. Like, it's what, but that's the reality is, depending on your age. Exactly. Exactly. Again, invalidating that person's existence, and
Mm-hmm.
invalidating your place in that existence. And once you're out of the church and you feel that loss, what do you do with that? How do you cope with that? How do you handle that? We weren't taught how to handle grief. We weren't taught.
Mm-mm.
We were,
Oh
again,
no.
they're in a better place. We just have to have faith that they're in a better place, instead of going, I am feeling this loss. This is a loss that
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to feel, and I'm going to have to just face every day.
Yeah.
And that's something that is like very difficult to weed through, which is why there's grief counseling, which is why there's all these things. But it's learning, we weren't taught how to deal with that in a healthy manner.
Yeah.
We were taught
The
to ignore
also
it.
the Yeah. Yeah. I think they're in a better place minimizes the person's life. Why? So they're in a better. What was wrong with their life? Why is it so bad to enjoy and appreciate the life that you have right here? Because whether you believe it or not, we don't know what happens afterwards. So why are we so? Why can't we appreciate and enjoy this life? Why can't we think about they led a wonderful life? Forget they're in a better place. How about they led a good life? They led a enjoyable life. This is the experiences that we had together, and celebrating the life that was
And I am
instead of
feeling that
minimizing it.
loss. And I am
Yeah,
feeling
and that's okay
that
to feel that
loss.
loss. It's
Yes.
natural to feel that loss and to be okay. It's like we're using those words to self-soothe, to make well, they're in a better place. I shouldn't feel bad because they're in a better place.
And that's exactly what Sean was saying, Paragon.
Mhm.
That's exactly what he is saying.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we learned, is that this life is tolerated.
Mhm.
And that's sad to think that's how I live. That's how a lot of people still live, is that this life is just tolerated. I will, and the songs that I sang in church prop emphasize that. There was so many hymns about getting to heaven, being in heaven.
But Paragon, I would like to counteract that, because
Hmm.
I know you personally, so I can say this, is that you are
Hmm.
working on not being that stepping stone. You are working on being that, and I'm very proud of you for not. And you know, it maybe it's not uncomfortable now, but I can see you doing the work, and it will eventually be uncomfortable, and that's okay. But I see you doing the work, and you know, it's okay. You are one foot in front of the other, one step at a time. And I
Hmm.
think
Yep.
you are doing the work with your therapist, and I am very proud of the work you're doing. And so, yes, that may be something that you're used to right now, and that's
Hmm.
we're gonna change that phrasing a little bit. Is that may be something that you're used to right now, but that also, if you continue to do the work, will be something that will become uncomfortable later, and that's okay. and I am very proud of your work. So keep that up. All right. So that is something you're used to right now, but maybe in the future it will not be. So yes. Yeah. We love us some Paragon.
We do. We absolutely do.
If I'm trying to get rid of it. I mean, being stepped a stepping stone and being stepped on.
Yep, you
Again,
did.
we don't kink shame, and you know what?
Nope.
I'm you know what? If
We don't.
I
We don't
made
yuck anyone's
$10,
yum.
if I made $10 every I mean, I'm not gonna be mad at it either. I mean, let's just be real honest. Um, so how does that affect us in our non how does not being taught how is being taught that everything is forever, how does that affect our post deconstructing, our post church eras? How does that affect us now? How does that affect you now, Sean? How does thinking everything isn't forever and that not being taught how to end things at all ever in a healthy manner, how does that affect your post church era?
Well, the mindset of everything is forever affects
Nerdy Will,
what?
I'm gonna have to where I'll DM you later. I need I have
All right.
I need some deets. Anyway, go ahead.
I said this earlier. The idea, or when I think about ending something, whether it's work or it's a friendship relationship, there's a lot of anxiety, and there's the same anxiety. Like the idea of changing jobs, of ending my work, like that's there's so many. I come up with it. I stay in jobs that I shouldn't have because I don't want to end them, because I don't like the feeling I get of thinking about ending them. There's always an excuse why not to. There's always a reason to stay. There's always, well, it's not a big deal. It's fine. I learned to suffer. I learned to accept. I learned that to ignore the flags. And the same thing with relationships. It's the I approached, you said this earlier, I approach relationships. I approach most of my relationships with, could I marry this person? It was never just date to date. There was always the idea of, could I marry this person? Are they marriage material? Are they, yeah, right? Exactly. And so it was never just date to date. It was never, yeah. So it was never about what's good for me. There was never a thought of, is this okay? Is it okay for me? Is this healthy for me? Is this job healthy for me? Is this relationship, this friendship, are they healthy for me? Have they become unhealthy for me? And what do I do about that? Do I just accept it, or do I do something?
Mhm.
Setting boundaries to try to adjust that, because I'm not saying you should just end something as soon as it becomes uncomfortable, but there's a point where you go, yeah, this isn't working. Have I set boundaries? Have I tried setting boundaries and they've broken those boundaries? And so it was never a learning. I never learned how to do any of that stuff. Everything was always the job. I learned you get the good job and you stay in the good job for forever. Why leave? And then so they're all. I have difficulty ending anything because it feels like everything's supposed to be. Well, it's okay. It's fine. It's not a big deal.
I remember because of this, and this was right as you just left the church, and your ex
Hmm.
had sent you a text, and she said, and I remember it hit you so hard. And you knew this was not going to be the last time you talked to her because, like, of all the
Yeah.
stuff. But she said, "Goodbye, Sean." And
Yes. Yeah.
oh, like he was like,
Hmm.
"Oh, boom!" Like, yes,
Ooh.
like because that hit
Oh.
him super hard. He was
It
like,
did.
because she knew he didn't know how to end things. She knew that
Yes.
he hated the finality of the
Yes. That's
goodbye and the
exactly it.
ending. And so I remember he was really devastated by that, even though they had already been like, they were either she was getting ready to move out or she had
Yeah.
just moved out. Like they were done. They were done. They knew, like he
Yeah.
knew they were done. But she said, "Goodbye, Sean." And it was just that. And
It hit
it hit him
hard.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Mm.
mean, I'm the same way. When I go, this isn't right.
Hmm.
This is not healthy for me. I am unhappy. whatever it is. And I can't go. I've got to go. I've got it. This is not it. I've got to end this. And you feel like, but here it is. You don't have a justifiable reason to leave.
Yes. Yes.
You have to have a justifiable reason to leave. Again, that goes back to the whole when I was telling you to leave the church, how you had to have a reason to leave the church. You had to have a reason. You had to justify everything that you did. You had to justify everything. Yes. So in your head, okay, this is over. I want to leave the church. I want to leave this relationship. I want to leave this job. But I don't have a justifiable reason. But the justifiable reason is you want to go. You need to go. Yeah. You should go. That's your reason. There's but you were taught that's not a good enough reason. And so even out of the church, even when you're not a Christian, you're like, well, I guess I'll stay. I don't really have a good reason to go.
Because prioritizing your happiness and your mental health, that isn't I learned that's not a justifiable reason. Like you just said, that is the reason, because there are red flags and I don't feel comfortable. I'm not happy. This isn't right for me anymore. That is not justifiable.
Because it's a personal thing. Because it's for you as a person. It's just what it is. It's not a justifiable reason to someone else.
Yes. I'm prioritizing myself, and that is not justifiable.
Boom. Exactly that.
Yeah. And whether that's a relationship or whether that's a job, it's the same. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm quitting this job. Why? Because I'm not happy anymore. Well, that's that. I mean, I don't understand. Blah blah blah. Yeah. That's hard. That's something very much trying to work on, is prioritizing myself and my comfort and my happiness and what I want. Up until this point for my life, it's like, what can I prove in court? What can I create a defense around? If I'm in court and having to do that's irrelevant. That doesn't matter. And I'm
on the flip side of that. It also taught us not to accept that as a reason. We always not to accept somebody's decision to end a relationship, to quit their job or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, why? Why? I need to know why. Yeah. I need to know why. I need to know the same reason that they don't. I don't need to know.
Because they're not happy. Well, why aren't you happy? Because it comes down to because it's no longer about the person who's making the choice. It's about the other person and what can they do differently. It's what can they change. Because they want to know the specifics, because they can make those actionable items. And they can try to convince you you're not happy because of this specific thing. Well, if I do this differently, that's them attempting to fix something, when in reality there's not something, it's not to be fixed. And just because they fix it doesn't mean that that's really changing anything.
Right.
Or they want to. They're not fixing it because they want to. They're fixing it because it'll make you stay. Because they want you to stay. And all you're doing is you're just kicking the can. You're just prolonging it, making it worse.
And if you make that decision expecting a result, expecting that going, oh, hey, I'm going to do this, and then I expect this change to happen, and then I'll come back, then that is you just being dishonest and manipulative.
This is... Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I gotta fly.
Oh, this is not the point where you're in a relationship and you see something that concerns you and you want to bring it up to them. No, this is the point where this situation, this job, this friendship, it is unhealthy. The entire thing is unhealthy, and it is time to move on. It is time to put that behind you. Yeah, this is when you've already gotten to that point. Because along the way, you've probably already brought things up. Hopefully, you've already brought
But
things
so
up.
many people use that as instead of going, hey, I would like to talk about this, they use that as like, it's done. I'm over. Like, how many times have we been in
Yes.
fucking romantic relationships? Sean, your
God.
very first high school girlfriend. Yeah, okay. I'm about to trigger Sean so hard.
Sorry,
I'm about to trigger
I'm
you.
already triggered.
I know.
I'm already
I got
there.
you, boo. I got you. So,
Oh.
like, they use that as a tactic of, then I guess we should break up. I guess you should break up. Then I'm breaking up with you unless you do this. I'm breaking up with you because of this. And expecting you, and they don't really want to break up with you. They don't really want to end that relationship. What they really want you to do is, hey, what you're doing is making me unhappy. I want to talk about it and so that we can we can have an understanding and have a healthy talk. No. It's just like, it's done. It's over. It's over. And then 2 days later, it's like, I love you. Like, I want to be with you. Like, this is like
Whiplash.
Yes.
The whiplash from that. Yes. Oh my God. That was,
Sean's very first thing, like even back when we dated back in the day when he was in college, that was his number one thing he told me when we were dating is, do not do that. He's like, if you have a problem, let's talk about it. Even though we weren't healthy and we never talked about anything. I mean, that's beside the point. But I mean, he's like, don't do that. Don't just go, we're breaking up. If there's a problem, let's address the problem, but don't break up with me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do not hold the relationship status hostage because you have a concern. That is a number one way to create insecurity in a relationship, is to leverage the status. If you have a concern, just have a concern.
Right.
But that's what my first girlfriend did. And there are other people that do that. That's what they know. That's how they deal with something in a relationship, is to hold it hostage.
And this also counts professionally too. How many of us had bosses that are like, have threatened our job? And we are terrified of making a mistake or doing something independently or whatever because we're afraid to lose our job.
Everything is a job ender.
Yes, everything is a job ender. Oh, everything's a friendship ender, because it's not just in related. Again, it is the toxic mindset of using that instead of addressing it. Like how many? And I know Sean and we weren't taught, again, in the church how to deal with shit like that. We were just taught just everything's forever, so we're gonna do what we have to do and face the trials. And our breaking up was a trial. The suffering.
Yeah. Suffering for the better. Suffering makes you stronger. Suffering is sometimes just suffering.
So now that we're in therapy, this will be our last little ender and in conclusion, like our little wrap up.
Yes.
Now that we're in therapy, how have you addressed ending relationships via personal, professional? How have you changed or are working on changing how you end things and end relationships?
Accepting that my happiness, my self-worth, my mental health, that those are acceptable, that it is okay to prioritize myself, that it is acceptable. If I'm unhappy, that's acceptable. If I don't want to accept this behavior from the other person, that's okay. I don't have to accept things that are not good for me. Now, putting that into practice is a little bit difficult, but that's what I'm learning to do. And that is both in my job and both in friendships. And that I don't have to have I can defend this reason in court justification. I don't have to. And I can give, when ending something, I can give an explanation if I so choose, but I'm not obligated to explain all of my reasons to the other person. That has been difficult. That is difficult to do, to accept this is what is acceptable for me and not acceptable for me. and gonna have to be okay. That's just how it is. Um, and that doesn't make me a bad person, and that doesn't make me selfish. That makes me someone who's prioritizing their well-being. That's what I'm learning.
Mhm. I mean, I'm learning
What about you?
this. I'm learning the same thing. That very similar. I'm also learning to not fall into the patterns of. I'm learning to accept somebody's ending. To accept, okay, this person says it's over. This person says they're leaving. This person
Hmm.
says whatever. And instead of like, what can I do better? What can I do to change your behavior, to change your choice, to change those things? What can I?
Hmm.
Because the people pleaser in me wants to make everything right. I've learned to go when somebody says, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. When somebody says, I don't want to be in a relationship with you anymore. When somebody says, this job isn't working, whatever, to accept and go, okay, then that's your choice. And, you can ask, what did I do to bring you to this
Hmm.
decision? But that doesn't mean that I need to change anything. Maybe I can learn from that, but I'm not going to
Hmm.
sit here and adjust my behavior and adjust all of those things because to keep that relationship going or to keep whatever it
Yeah.
is. That choice is their choice, and I need to accept that and respect that. And sit in the
Hmm.
sadness and discomfort and the whatever feelings and accept the feelings that come with that, but not
Hmm.
try to change anything or chase after that person because they want to go, let them go. And because I used to be a chaser. I used to be a chaser. And what it is that when you
Yeah.
chase them, it's manipulation. And I don't want to be manipulative. I don't want to. Like, if they want to go, then that's what their choice is. And I need to be respectful of that. And I need to just now I need to make my own choices,
Hmm.
which is hard because then you're sitting here going, like you said, what do I do now? I got to make all sorts of different things. I love you,
That's
Paragon.
funny, Paragon.
And for those of you who are just lurking, as Tiragon says, I don't even take chasers with my drinks, let alone with my people. Good for you,
Hmm.
because I certainly chase after so many
Know
people
your
all of
worth.
my life. Yeah, exactly. Know your work,
Yeah.
top shelf. Um,
Yeah. As a codependent, as a recovering codependent, that is a big part of it. Is the chase. It is the what can I do? How can I fix this? There's always something that I can fix. That I could fix. And it doesn't matter whether it's something that's good for me or not. It's because the focus is not making myself better. It's how do I keep them from leaving?
Mhm.
That's what the fix is. It's one thing if they say this is something you do that upsets me, and you're going, oh yeah, I do that. That's something that isn't good for my mental health or is an unhealthy behavior. That's not healthy. I should work on that because I want to work on that. That's different than going, you don't like this, therefore I'm going to fix this so you don't leave me. It's all
Mhm.
about where the focus is. And that's been a lot of my relationships when the other person has initiated that is I can fix that. Let me
Oh,
fix it.
oh, now I'm triggered. Fuck you,
Yeah.
buddy.
Head contact. No. Yeah.
Right in the
Yeah.
gut. All right, thanks. Cool, 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 cool.
You're okay. Yeah. It's that wonderful codependence.
Yep.
There's always something else that I could do
And the
that I
church
can
always,
do.
and the church did teach us that because if you're
Yeah.
out of the faith, you could fix it. You
Yeah.
just
There's
have
always
to,
something more.
there's always something you could do. And in
Just got to pray
reality,
more. Got to read your Bible more. Got to do your
more
devotionals
faithful.
more.
Yeah. And,
Be
and
more faithful. Yeah.
the reality is that prioritizing ourselves and our mental
Hmm.
health and our emotional health is not a bad thing. And also, in that same vein, and radical acceptance, the
Hmm.
other person making choices for their own mental health and emotional health is not a bad thing.
Hmm.
Two things can exist, and that's okay. And if that means that, that it's okay, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's trying to keep something that isn't working together, that's where it becomes hard
Mhm.
and toxic. Instead of just going there, and you just know.
You do. You just don't admit it,
Yeah.
but you know.
Yeah, you know. Your brain tells you. Your brain tells you. And I think it's like but depending on where you are in your mental and emotional health journey, where you are in your work, you don't sometimes know what that looks like until later. And that's
Mhm.
okay too. It's just where you're at, because there's a lot of toxic behaviors that I didn't even know were really toxic behaviors until I got deep into my
Right?
therapy. And then you're just like,
Yeah.
oh, so like Paragon said, being used to being a stepping stone. Like you convince yourself that you're just being supportive. When you're not being supportive,
Yes.
you're being trampled on, and
Yeah.
not in the
Mhm.
fun way. So, I mean, learning those differences, and it does take time, and that's perfectly okay.
It does.
It just
Yeah.
So endings and knowing when it's over, learning that you don't have to justify your choices, and you don't have to
Mhm.
like when you're leaving the church, you can leave. If it's good for you, if it's best for you, you can leave.
Mhm.
And having to learn that as as a grown up after years and years and years and years of that is very hard. And it is still something
Mhm.
I can't say for Sean, but for me, I still struggle with all the time. I struggle with,
Mhm.
this isn't right for me. How do I move on? This isn't right for me. How do I just go, okay, this isn't right for me? And not feel like a shameful bad person, and having to
That's the
self-flagellate
hard part.
over and
Yeah.
over again, mea culpa,
Mhm.
it's like, and taking on that responsibility and that guilt of, maybe I could have done more.
Mhm.
Maybe I could have done more. Maybe I couldn't have done more. And in the end, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It just is what it
And
is.
what
And
is
this
that
is
more and
right.
why would yeah, exactly.
Is that more really? Could I have done more and still maintained my own mental and emotional health?
That's where it comes down to. And that's usually it's not. It's what is that doing more, what does that look like? What does that mean? What how does that play out? Cuz usually it's not doing more is it doing more usually isn't something that improves who you are as a person and in your mental health. Usually that doing more is giving up something of yourself.
And remember, it's vice versa. If you expect more out of somebody and
Mhm.
they are saying they can't, you just have to accept that. And that's
Yeah.
hard too.
It is oh, it's very hard, yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't do more. Well, then that's when you have to go, well, I need more. And so maybe
Mhm.
this isn't working.
Yes. Yeah, and it's hard to accept that that's okay, but it is.
Yeah. So this
All
was
right.
pretty good, decent for me being jet lagged.
Right,
Winning,
exactly.
winning.
Yeah.
I'm literally in my pajamas, y'all. Literally in my
Mhm.
pajamas. So,
It's all good. It's
oh,
fine.
it is all good. Well, Pep, thank you for joining me on this
Mhm.
Sunday. I
Of course.
appreciate
Thanks for
it.
having me.
Oh. Like, this isn't our mutual joint
I was
show.
thinking that it's not like we haven't done this every single week almost.
Like we haven't started the show together, and you're just a guest. You're like, what the? Sorry about that. Pep, I am so glad I get to do this with you every Sunday.
Me too. I do. I absolutely enjoy. I appreciate that we have this podcast together.
I do
I
too.
think it's
I do too.
yeah.
Well, here we are.
All right.
All right, you
So how do
guys.
we end? How do the podcast?
How do I
I
know?
mean,
I
how do we
know.
end
We're like,
the episode?
yeah. How do we? I don't know how to end it. I don't
Well, this
know.
has been fun.
Bye. No, anyway, thanks for joining us. On this
Love you
Sunday and
guys.
sharing your Sunday with us, and we appreciate you being
Mhm.
here. Again, you can follow me on all the socials at Nerd Mom Ace. Sean has socials, but he's never on them because he's an old man, and he has
I
Facebook.
am. I don't know. I
He has
don't know how they
Facebook
work.
and TikTok because he's like. So,
So,
thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you guys later.
yeah. Bye.
Bye.